So, good morning to all of you, and this is the last lecture, concluding lecture of the series which we have been discussing Buddhist theory of meaning and literary analysis broadly. This is a position by Vijnanavadins, Yogacharya Vijnanavad, rejection of Bahya Arthavad. Bahya Artha, external object is not acceptable because they don't have their own independent existence. In that sense, it is rejected, right? They say that it is only Vijnana that appears like this. Then the question is asked, without any substratum, without any basis, how can it appear like that? Then the answer is here, Niralambanvad, that it appears even when there is nothing to project upon. Okay, so this is how Vijnan is the entity. Don't think that they are going to say that Vijnan is Atma. I have seen in many books written like that they accept Vijnan as Atman or Shunya as Atman. There is no question. What is Atman in this system we have already seen. That's another name for this Panchaskandha, right? Then you will see this Vijnan is, there are other synonyms. Chitta for Vijnan, Chitta is also used. Vigyapti, Alaya and Tathatha. Tathata. Suchness, something like suchness. So Chitta is the receptive self, Chitta. Man, mind. Vigyapti, Jnana, Vijnana. Alaya, that is the substratum where all the impressions are stored. So that's why Chitta is considered as Alaya also, Alaya Vijnan, and suchness, Tatata. So this is the position taken by the Vijnanavadins, and there are 7 types of Vijnan we have already discussed. If you remember, 5 Vijnanas associated with our 5 knowing senses, and there we include sensory or motor perception also, like karmendriya, organs of action, and then there is manovijnana, right? 5 knowing senses. Then 6th is manovijnana. 7th is Klishta Manovijnana. Okay. Klishta Manovijnana. And finally, Alaya Vijnana. Alaya Vijnana. Okay, Alaya Vijnana. What happened? Right. So this is equivalent to Chitta also. Chitta. So Vijnan manifests itself in this format. 5 Vijnanas associated with the knowing senses. Then Manovijnana, man, mind, that is associated with this 5 knowing senses. That's why it is called Samantara Ashraya. Samantara, intermediate Ashraya. Intermediate between this one and the rest of the things which are there. So Manovijnana and then Klishta Manovijnana. What is the difference between the two? Vijnana simply receives the impressions, chittakar, or it manifests these, and whatever form we want, it takes that form only. And klist is that manovigyan where we arrive at a certain conclusion. Maybe it is sukh dukh, like suffering or pleasure, or that particular object, tree or something. So here we are very much determined about the object, but the object is always vijnana, though it appears in the physical or conceptual form. It is all vijnana according to them, right? And then alaya. Alaya is the substratum, basis of all such things. It is equivalent to chitta. All these impressions here, they are stored at this level. So chitta appears like a disturbed ocean. Okay, normally when we are keeping all these impressions here, it is disturbed. And what is the nirvana or moksha? That this chitta has to be calm and serene, without any waves or ripples or so. That is chitta. And there are other methods, meditation and all such things. First of all, it is important to know the real nature of the objects. Real nature is vijnana. That's why when we perceive it otherwise, then the suffering begins. So these are the issues involved. Now coming back to apoha, there are one or more, two things more I need to share, and that is here, right? We discussed yesterday that apoha is of the nature of difference, right? There is a kind of negation of the counter correlate. Counter correlate is negated. Cow negates non-cow, and by exclusion the meaning of cow is established, right? And we also discussed why this theory is considered like this, why it is conceptualized like this. There are two reasons. One is that the object is without any self nature. Second, the object is always momentary. It is moving all the time. So it is not possible for the word to capture that. So the theory of meaning is to be built up or to be considered in conformity with this kind of philosophical assumptions. It must include. Then there are things like later on Shantarakshita, a Mahayana philosopher, he talked about while discussing this apoha. By that time there were so many objections coming from the other schools of thought, for example Nyayikas primarily. So this is the beauty if you study a thing in a tradition. So you will see all these debates which are going on, and the response also. If somebody is having any doubt or questioning something, then later acharyas, later exponents respond to that, and this is how it goes on. So there was lots of debate coming from our objections coming from the Mimamsakas and Nyayikas, because both are the realist systems, Mimamsa and the Nyaya. They are the realist systems. So they were saying that ultimately, when you say the meaning of cow is negation of non-cow, but then ultimately what is getting established? It is the positive entity. It is the real object you are going to establish. Cow is in this process. Ultimately, cow is established. So cow is a positive entity. Cow is a positive entity. So you cannot deny this position, and this is typical of realist system, of the realist system. Then they say, they explain it. Okay, Shantarakshit says that let us first consider what is negation? Okay, negation. And then he says there are two types. It is called prasajya pratishedha and viparyudas. Prasajya pratishedha and viparyudas. Right. Prasajya pratishedha and paryudas. Right. So you will see this prasajya pratishedha is absolute negation, right? Prasajya pratishedha is absolute negation, and paryudas is relative. Relative in the sense that you negate a part and accept the other aspect of it, right? Yeah. Not like that. Not like that. Exactly. Prasajya pratishedha and paryudas, absolute negation and partial negation or relative negation, right? So here you have viparyudas or paryudas. Sorry, paryudas of something. You are negating. You may negate absolutely. You can negate in such a way that one part or aspect is negated, and other is still there. You are not negating, right? So paryudas is relative. This is what we are concerned with, paryudas. And that, see, this is the impact of debate. Shantarakshit is saying that when we are talking about negation, we are in fact concerned with partial negation. So in this process of apoha, in this process of knowing an object through the contextual exclusion, we are negating partially and positing something also at the same time, right? So we are negating non-cow and we are establishing cow. This is what he says. Now he is heavily criticized by his own, follower, Ratnakirti. Ratnakirti says that this is not, sir, what you are describing or explaining. Our master Dingnag has left no scope for partial negation or so relative negation. It is absolute negation, because see, if you posit something positively, then you are going against the basic foundational assumptions of Buddhism, isn't it? That through word you can still talk about something which is real, okay? And it is an imperative that words do not have any access to swalakshana, thing in itself, So Shantarakshit is saying that by implication positive thing is established. He says no, this is also not there. Absolute negation. Absolute negation is what our great master Dingnag had meant. So the conclusion is that even in this case of partial negation or absolute negation, we have see, बड़ा complicated है सर, ठीक है? Paryudas, he says that it is also of two kinds. चर्चा कर ही लेते हैं इसकी भी, है ना? One is called Buddhyatman, another is called Arthatman. Buddhyatman, Buddhyatman and Arthatman.
That was Paridas or Viparidas?
No, Paryudas. Prasajya Pratished Paryudas. So, this is relative partial negation, and it has two parts. One is Buddhyatman, Buddhyatman, add T, and Arthatman, related to intellect only, mind only, and related to object. So, Shantarakshit is saying that this is not what I mean. He is not concerned with the object. He is saying it is just to defend, or accepting the position taken by the Vijnanvarins. He says that it is still the intellection, this is still the domain of intellection. So, here we posit something, when we negate, here we posit, but that is conceptual, that is at the level of mind only, not at the level of object, physical object or so. So, here the position is different from that of taken by the Mimamsakas or Nayayikas. Got this idea? Here only, it is negated here, not here. Okay. So, even in Paryudas, the position is here, but Shantarakshit, after him, Ratnakirti says no, even not this much is also not acceptable. It should be absolute in this category, Prasajya Pratished, right? So, this is how it goes on. Debates are there, and you see this we have discussed so far at the level of word, cow, tree or so. What about when we are talking about phrases, compound words, blue lotus for example? How do we negate it? What is negated? What is excluded? In order to get the meaning of a compound word like blue lotus, Nilotpal, Nilotpal, how do we arrive at this meaning? क्या negate करेंगे इसमें? What do we negate? What is its counter correlate and how it is negated? In the same way, try.
All the lotuses which doesn't qualify for blue.
First of all, lotus exclude non-lotus, and now we are in the class of lotus, and in that also blue lotus exclude all the non-blue lotus, and this way meaning is established. Very cleverly done. Okay. Now what about the sentence? Because if it is the theory of meaning, it must be at that level as well, at the level of word, at the level of compound, and at the level of sentence also. Okay. So, for example, this road leads to Patliputra, right? This road leads to Patliputra, Patna, modern Patna. What is negated? Each word is negating its counter correlate. This, not that. That is excluded. In the same way, is negates all the other tenses, right? Is negates all the tenses, and then leads to. So, leading or moving towards is a specific kind of verb. It negates all the non-leading verbs. Okay, and Patna, quite clear. Patna negates all other cities. Okay, so in this way it is established. Meaning of a sentence is also established by negating all its counter correlates, but there is still a problem. We are negating each and every word, counter correlate of each and every word, but sentence is not just a sum total of the words which are applied there.
It has multiple meanings.
No. Sentence is an integral entity also.
Oh, yeah.
There is a sentential meaning, and sentential meaning cannot be the sum total of the word meanings which are there. Is it okay? Or do you think like that the sentential meaning is a sum total of the words which are applied there?
No, it's more than that.
What is the meaning of the words?
Hmm?
I think this was discussed by Professor Shravan.
So sentential meaning may be positive or negative, or something more than what the words are applied. It may not be equivalent to the sum total of the words, right? It has to be much more than that. Now the question is, words are discrete, so are the speech sounds. So are the speech sounds. Each and every individual speech sound we utter, each and every word we utter one after another. So how do we arrive at this understanding that this is a sentence? Where do you put the full stop? This is complete now. In other words, what is essential for a sentence? How do we recognize this is a particular sentence? Yeah? Noun and verb. Okay? Yes?
It stops making comprehensible sentence the purpose of sentence is
तो डिस्कस किया है क्या आकांक्षा योग्यता आसक्ति
Akansha Yoga sir ने
डिस्कस किया है
Because in the Western tradition we have discussed what is sentence many times. What is a sentence in European tradition? We have discussed it. See, for example, we have discussed if you ask me something and I say it's a sentence.
Yeah.
That's the European tradition. And the Akansha Yoga sir has discussed in details. Previous semester also.
But these are the components, akanksha, yogyata, asana, these are the conditions. The question still remains that how do these different components get together? I am raising a point that suppose you have to utter a word like Kamala, lotus for example. The moment you utter the first word, the other two words are absent. When you utter the second one, first one is gone. The third one is yet to be articulated, and when you utter the last phoneme, two are already gone. So how do you get this idea that this is a one unit? How did you get the this unit that Kamal is an integral word? This is the issue, and to resolve it, grammarians come up with the sport. And what is there to grasp this meaning? They call it pratibha. This is very central to our culture, and the same you will see in poetics also. Poetics, pratibha. Right? So Buddhists also have to accept this pratibha, intuitiveness, intuitive meaning. Okay? Otherwise, how these things will get connected and form a unit, Okay? So pratibha is important. But again, this is at the level of mind, processed through mind. That's why it has a different level altogether in Buddhism. Right? So Sport helps you, sport theory by the grammarians helps you to understand this. Though Buddhists do not accept this sport theory, but they accept this one, which is important for comprehending the meaning of the text. Because if the sounds are discrete one after another, or words are also uttered in a sequence, and finally sentence, and after once you finished one sentence, you utter another sentence. So it is in continuity. What connects them together? What connects them together? To explain this, we need to have this pratibha. I don't know how to translate it. But this is the function of pratibha is to achieve the integrity of whatever has been stated, and to understand the units, complete cognitive units. It helps us to understand a particular cognitive unit, and this is how we get the meaning. That meaning also, which is more than the sum total of the word meanings. Okay, sum total of word meaning. And that's why in poetics also, in composition of poetry, pratibha is a very, very important.
Pratibha is an action or a faculty?
It's faculty. It's faculty, right? It's faculty. But in Buddhism, it is discussed at the level of mind only. Remember, mind. So it has a function in that way. But this is the faculty that helps us, when it becomes functional, it helps us to understand these units, right? So this is how this Apo theory goes on. So it equally applies to sound. One sound negates its counter correlate, like ka. It negates all the non-ka, right? So you know the difference. What is the difference between ka and kha, or ga or ga or gha, like this. At the level of speech sound, at the level of word, at the level of sentence, at the level of discourse also. Discourse also. So it negates the other types of discourses. If you go through a particular poem, its meaning, overall meaning, integrated meaning, negates the other sorts of, for example, Ramayana. Okay, it at the discourse level, it negates the other discourses, counter correlates, and meaning of Ramayana is established. Okay, so this is how it goes on, right? Now, coming to, is there any query so far? Then we will move to another thing. Yeah.
There you are in compound way. You are not taking the word in a single. In a sentence.
No, you want me to explain again? Buddhyatman, that which is at the level of intellect. So this partial negation is at the level of intellect only. They are saying, no, this partial means what? You are negating a part of it and you are positing the other part. Okay. So earlier the position was that Mimamsakas and Nyayikas were saying that ultimately when you negate non-cow, you are establishing cow. So they have to defend their theory, no? They have to defend their theory that this equally holds good there also. So they said that negation is of two kinds, and this is accepted, not created by the Buddhists, just to defend their theoretical position. It is already there in other philosophical systems as well as in grammar. We have this category. So pratisheda, prasajya pratisheda and paryudasa. Then he says that in this relative negation, there are two aspects, buddhyatman and arthatman. Paryu. Oh, why? Paryudasa. So buddhyatman and arthatman, at the level of, we negate, at the level of, partial negation takes place at the level of intellect. Okay, not at the level of artha, right? Earth is ontological entity. So we are not positing any ontological entity, real object, but it is only conceptual, and here it is negated and established. The meaning of cow is established here. What you are saying cow, after negating non-cow, what remains there is here. Okay. So non-cow is negated, and finally this conceptual cow. We are not talking the object cow, right? Yesterday through triangle we explained this. This is positive. Later on, Ratnakirti denies even this. There is nothing like partial or Atman or Atman negation. Our master in clear term established that meaning is always absolute negation, complete negation of the counter correlate. So this was the definition.
Sir, and the support theory. When you consider support theory and then you join syllabus, the curve or कोई cover का image बनता है then that is manifested through word and then that becomes the answer. But then कहाँ पे where do we need to stop to make the sentence make sense? Is there any instruction for this?
Yes, I think sir has discussed Akanksha, Sakti, Yogyata, where expectancy is no longer there. It means sentence is complete. And that's why you put it, remember Sanskrit word, Purna Viram. It's Purna Viram. So all expectations are now satisfied. In the life also, when we get this, we got moksha.
But expectation with regards to that.
Life is also like a sentence. You keep expecting things one after another series, and then it is completed, then it is moksha. Purna Viram, right? Yes?
So I think अगर कमल बोलने दिमाग में कमल का बन गया image and then you speak कमल and you are satisfied with the answer. But
See,
you keep adding.
you have to, there are two things. Not whether it's but there is internal argument of the verbs. Verb is central, right? This is the verb that says how many nouns are required intrinsically, sometimes internal, sometimes external, to fulfill the logical requirement of a verb. It is called theta rule in modern linguistics. Modern linguistics, the same is called theta rule in phonetic rule of a verb. So, if you have a verb like go, how many nouns? It means just one, the person who is going, right? Other thing, going to some place, that is complementary. You may add so many things, but that is not required at all. Okay? Requirement is that there has to be some subject who can perform this, where this verb is realized. Okay? Verbs are abstract. They take form when they are performed. Walking. Okay? So you have to show someone walking. To show someone walking. Laughing. Show someone who is laughing. Right? So they are abstract in that sense. So you need just one noun. Right? In case of da or leave, how many? One who is performing this act of giving. Okay. Second, the object which is being given, and the person who is going to receive it. So you need two nouns. One is the subject, another two are objects. Right? So this is called dual objective. It requires two objects. So this is how it goes on. Once this is satisfied, then other things are just filling up. You want to extend, you want to say something over where this act was performed, what were the instruments, like this, all these 7 cases, all the 7 cases. But here you need essentially to fill up its thematic. The verb should not be left unsatisfied in the sense that its argumental structure is not complete. This is what we mean by argumental structure of the verb. Okay? So, Akanksha, Yogyata and Sannidhi, these 3 are sentential component discussed mainly by the Mimamsakas. In Vyakran, we have a scope theory that find it in a cognitive unit. Different items are bound together and moreover, in this grammarian school, sentence is accepted as the basic cognitive unit. That's why they are called Vakyarthvadin. Vakya. Sentence is the basic cognitive unit. Right? In other systems like Nyaya or even Bodh, they are Padvadins. For them, this unity is important. Word is important. And that's why Gregorians define Pad as Suktingantam Padam. Pad is that which takes nominal suffix or verbal suffix. Only then it will be verb. Sorry, sentence. So, Subant and Tingant are the sentential categories. Remember. Should we move to another thing? We are moving to literature part, literary analysis part, right? What are the words in our language of literature?
Aditya, Kavya, Manamaya.
So the question Kavya or Sahitya, Sahitya is very important. It's very beautiful. It tells you many things. That it is for the welfare of all. This is Rashekar is saying, beginning of that Kavya Kavya is required for the welfare of the people. So, Sahit, इसमें हित का भाव, हित means well-being, welfare of everyone. So no discrimination, male or female or caste, community, nothing. Welfare of all beings. Second, it is Sahitya because it associates both word as well as meaning. Sahit, bringing them together. What? Word as well as meaning. So Vachi and Vachak both. But you can say that this is common in any other discourse. Everywhere you have word and everywhere you have meaning, corresponding meaning. What is unique here? This is what we call over-application of a definition. This is a flaw. Three kinds of flaws are discussed. How to say?
Avyapti,
Avyapti, Ativyapti and Sambhava. Did I write? Or less? Three kinds, a definition should be free from these three kinds of flaws. One is called Ativyapti, Avyapti and Asambhava. Over application, narrow application and impossible. You should not you should not take any such characteristic that is over applied. So if you want to define cow, when you say cow is that animal which has two horns. By this definition, all those animals having two horns will be cow. So this kind of characteristics or feature you should not select. In the same way, you should not also select avyapti that applies only to part of it. Okay? Narrow application. We call it narrow application. And the third is you should not select such a feature which is not there at all. This is called flaw in a definition. So when we are saying that it is like bringing together word and meaning. It is ativyakti. Because all sorts of Wangmen and whatever discourse will be Sahitya by this definition. But this is not what we mean. Now, coming to that, there is a very unique way of classifying Indian verbal discourses, and I'm sure you might have discussed this with research. This is Prabhu Samhit, Suhrit Samhit, and Kanta Samhit. Prabhu Samhit. Kanta Samhit, and Prabhu Samhit, Suhrit Samhit. And Kanta Samhit. 1, 2, and 3. Prabhu Samhit is Veda, statement of a master. Okay, master. Here word is very important. Shabda. Shabd is of prime importance. No speech sound can be altered or replaced. So the sound itself is very, very important at this level. Forget about meaning. Sound itself is very significant here. So this combination of speech sounds, these are here important. So it is called Prabhu Samhit, statement of a master. You cannot change or alter or interchange words. Then comes Suhrit Samhit. Suhrit Samhit is a statement like a statement of a friend. So you can change the word. So to that extent, meaning is not altered. Okay. So this is called Artha Pradhan. Artha Pradhan. So all our Dharma Shastras, Puranas, all come under this category. Here it is strictly Shabda, means Ved. And third is Kanta Samhit, that is statement of a beloved, let us say, beloved. Here both Shabda and Artha, both are equally important. Okay? So all the definitions given in our culture of poetry is referring to these two. Shabdartho Sahito Kavyam, Ramaniyarth Pradaka Sabda Kavyam, like this. So you find Riti Atma Kavya, and what is Riti? Vishishta Pradarasana, Riti, etc. So word and meaning, right? Word and meaning both are equally, they compete with each other. In this kind of discourse, composition, word and meaning compete with each other. You cannot change the word, you cannot change the meaning. Right? So for example, Krashchit Kanta Virah Durga Swadhikara Unappa Nevutam. So Kanta means what? Right. But if you change this word with Patni, the music is gone. Music. It cannot be replaced. This may be the criteria of good poetry also. You cannot change even a single syllable because it will harm the music or chand or the old, aesthetics and meaning also. So this is how it goes. Okay. So Sahitya is that kind of discourse where both Shabda and Arth, word and meaning, both are very important. They are competing with each other. So you will see that all these figures of speech, Alankar for example, they are either based on Shabda or based on Arth, or based on word or meaning. In the same way, we have all such things. Now, second, what is the status, epistemological status of literature in our culture? In the West, you have huge debate whether literature is a valid knowledge discourse or not. Plato, Aristotle, are not not to be considered as Western, not Western. They were made Western during Renaissance. Yes. So, anyway, but there is a huge debate, and I'm sure you might be knowing about them. But here we say that knowledge is essentially a knowledge discourse, essentially, but a very distinct kind of knowledge discourse, very distinct. And I'm coming to that. First of all, think of the Natya Shastra. All the four components were taken from four Vedas. From Rig Veda, text is taken, you read in the Rama, you read some narrative, you read text. So text is taken from Rig Veda, action is taken from Yajurveda, music, dance taken from Samaveda, and Atharva, from Atharva, what is taken? Rasveda. These four components were taken from valid knowledge sources. Veda is considered to be a valid knowledge source. So taken from there, so how can you deny? How can you deny that the drama that is based, that is taken or inspired by these knowledge texts is going to be false, not reliable? But drama is much more than that. This is also important. It must transcend what we call its material, taken like text taken from. By combining all these four, you may not get a successful drama. Something more is also required, and Natya Shastra tells you need the kashiki, the thing, aesthetic, aesthetics. It must be aesthetically appealing. So it is taken from the dance of Shiva, that when he dances at the end of the day, when he dances on the Mount Kailash, his hair locks sprayed around like this, and it appears so beautiful. So Kashiki is taken from there. Natya Shastra is a empirical text.
Second, third, fourth chapter, which you also
Six chapters.
this study is
First chapter.
First Natya
origin of Natya.
So, and Natya is also for the welfare of the people. It is come down for the welfare of the people. So, also things we are discussing. Then you will see that there is also an approach that tells you that in Sahitya, again, Sahitya, all knowledge disciplines merge together. All knowledge disciplines. When you are composing a text, literary text, you don't need only one discipline, one knowledge discipline also. You should equally be familiar with the Shastra tradition of the knowledge text, and also the tradition in the world. In different parts of the country, you will have different cultural practices also. So a poet or a dramatist should be familiar with it. Otherwise, your work is going to be flawed. And that's why Indian poeticians have dealt in detail in this poetic flaws. Agam Virodhi and Lok Virodhi, both are flaws. Agam Virodhi and Lok Virodhi. Agam Virodhi and Lok Virodhi. Okay. Agam means Shastra tradition, knowledge tradition. That is in the tradition, right? Agam Virodhi. So if we posit something which is contradictory to what is stated in those knowledge texts, it will be a kind of flaw. And then the Lok Virodhi, the worldly traditions, cultural practices, etc., also not to be ignored. Otherwise, it will also cause a kind of flaw in poetry.
are the important aspects. So both are equally important. Now the very important is the idea of poet. क्या है poet? कवि कहते हैं कवि कवि How do they differ from each other? Kavi, poet, maker. Poet is literally a maker, maker of verses also. Here, Kavi is given a very high level, and that is the level of drashta, Kanta drashta. You can see through the boundaries of time and space. Kanta drashta. Kanta drashta. And Kavi literally means Sarvabhya, one who knows everything. So this kind of expectation is there in that tradition. So it's very difficult to qualify. Keeping apart those creative aspects, poet has to be a very, very knowledgeable person. Otherwise, his poetry will be marked by these flaws. And the composition will not be appreciated by the learned audience. So, there is a beautiful verse in Ved. It says, Devasya pashyakavyam na mamara na jiyati. Devasya pashyakavyam na mamara na jiyati. Translation to you. Devasya Devasya Pashya Kavyam, see the poetry, to translate it literally, see the composition, poetry of gods, Devasya, God. Na Mamara, that doesn't die and neither dies nor fade. Okay? Doesn't get old, and doesn't die. So this is the, I think, one of the parameters of examining good poetry also. Good poetry doesn't die, and its meaning keeps evolving every time. Every time you read, you will come up with new reflections, new understanding of it. So this is in the Vedic text. The second thing is that we have been told that literature is imitative or art is imitative in nature. This is also not accepted here in our culture, because each composition is unique and it is not a copy of something pre-existing. Okay? It's highly creative. So we cannot say that the poet is an imitator, as we see in and this has been highlighted again and again. Apurvam yad vastu prathayati vinaka alankarana, and the word for that is apurva. Apurva. That nothing has happened earlier. For example, Abhidhyana Shakti. Okay? That is apurva. Nothing has been created like that earlier, and nothing can be created also after. Similarly, same. Okay? So it is called apurva, because this is the work of a creative impulse, intuitive impulse, that is called pratibha. Pratibha doesn't imitate, it creates. It creates in such a way that it is not airy, not just imaginary, and not just empirical. Okay? It is something extraordinary. So apurvam yad vastu prathayati ya apurva vastu nirmana kshama pradya is that which is capable of creating a new object, new in the sense that it is not an imitation of pre-existing reality or pre-existing situation, right? So this is how it goes on. And finally, we see that literature doesn't preach you directly. The message, if there is any message at all, we don't study literature to get some message. Okay? It is just an enjoyment, sheer enjoyment. Okay? Leela, what we call leela, playfulness. When God plays certain kinds of acts, it is simply out of the sheer will, sheer free will, and just to enjoy it. As you can see children playing together, is there any message they are communicating to you? No, they are engaged and engrossed in that joyfulness. Okay? In the same way, the world is created out of this creative impulse, and the message is simple blissfulness, if there is at all. Okay? It is not giving you some idea that you should act like this or not. Literature teaches all such things, but not directly. If a literary work teaches you directly, maybe not a good one. So it is said that you have to follow, you have to become like Ram and not like Ravana. It should be suggested, not communicated directly. Okay? So this is important. Literature, Thomas D. Quincy, I think you have heard his name, Thomas D. Quincy, wrote a very famous essay, Literature of Knowledge and Literature of Power, right? Thomas D. Quincy. Literature of Knowledge and Literature of Power. This is what he precisely means there, no? Literature of knowledge informs you. You get more information, more knowledge, but no one studies literature for the sake of information. There are other better sources, more varied sources, in fact, for information. So we approach literature not for such things, but literature of power moves us within. Moves us within. We can experience actually what the protagonist has undergone, what kind of situation or mental state the protagonist has undergone. Right? So this is the idea. Ramayana is not to give you, it is not composed just to give you a series of events that what happened in one's life. Okay? It is for experiencing the suffering, experiencing the difficult situations in life. Such text is there, and that takes its own course. A good literary work is that which is not predetermined, that I am going to write a narrative that gives you this message that you should treat everyone equally. It's better to write just a single sentence. Why to write a narrative? It flourishes on its own, like Nicholas' story of Mufasa. Diamond necklace, necklace, or the last leaf by Owen. Only the Ramayana, all the great texts, Shakespearean drama, all such things. So, and then the whole idea is just like we do in a philosophy or meditation in mystic tradition. The whole idea of literature is also to dissolve one's own self. In modern times, our literature is about creating identities. We are more concerned with identities. On the other hand, this is the culture that tells you dissolve yourself. Literature liberates us from our narrow self. It should liberate us. It should liberate us. Okay. Now, coming to this characteristics of Indian literary theories, we might have discussed that it is linguistic in nature. First of all, Indian literary theories are language-based observation or analysis of language. So take any, for example, figures of speech. That is also language-based theory. Then you have Riti. Riti is very much rooted in language. Riti Ratma Kavyasya Vaman says that Riti is the soul of poetry. And what is Riti? A specific arrangement of words, specific element. So you are again discussing language. Third, body theory proposed by, responded by Anandavardhan, that is rooted in language. Then you have what? Objective also starting from Varna, etc. Finally, Prabandha, Vakrokti, Varna Vakrata se lekar ke Prabandha Vakrata tक, all this is the analysis of language, based on language. And finally, you have Rasa. So Rasa also in Shravya Kavya, there are two types of Kavya, Drisya and Shravya, pertaining to sights and pertaining to ear. So in Shravya Kavya, language is the only medium with us. So you need language. So that's why Vishwanath, logician, says Vakyam Rasatmakam Kavyam. Vakya is a linguistic category, as you know. So you will see that in all these schools, language figures very prominent. Language. Why it is possible? Why it became possible in this culture? Because you have a very rich grammatical tradition. In other cultures, this kind of theoretical framework we don't have, because this is that sustained linguistic analysis is not there. So it helps us. Third thing is that it is category bound. Indian literary theories are category bound. So for everything you need, you have the categories. So you have categories of vakrata, obliqueness, you have category of rasa, you have category of upana. As a so, once you have categories, then they are applicable also. So, Indian literary theories are applicational because they are category bound. So, you can always apply them. You can always illustrate through these categories. So, they are illustrative, they are applicable, okay? They are category bound, they are linguistic, all sorts of things are there. And then you have you can see they are empirical also. You can actually explain by taking different grammatical components. You can explain it also. So this is how it goes on. And I was just talking about the very distinct kind of knowledge. Literature in our culture is very, very distinct knowledge. And the question is asked in Natyashastra itself, what kind of padarthi is Natya? In the commentary by Abhinavagupta, 10th, 11th century politician, philosopher, mystic, musician, so grammarian, he has raised this question in the very first chapter of the Natyashastra. Natya Rasa Padarth kya hai? How it is distinct from other types of objects. And the answer is very, very in detailed form, even in the first chapter and the sixth chapter of the Natyashastra. So, there are 10 types of worldly experiences and 5 types of their corresponding cognitions. Right? I'm sure you will go through it on your own after discussing it.
Natyashastra they are discussed, because literary theory also, we offered them a full course also, but they said they have studied in Vita, they have studied,
I'll just give you a few names. How literature is distinct from experiences, worldly experiences. Like anukaran, imitation. You do not imitate in literature. It is not Pratibimb, counter image. It is not counter image. It is not chitra, picture, a painting. It is not sadrishya, similarity. It is not based on similarity that the person who is there on the stage looks like Ram. We don't experience it like this. We perceive him as Ram, okay? But not at the same time that he is the actual Ram. Right? This is uniqueness. And then you have aropa. Aropa means imposition. Imposition. So you impose a snake on a rope like this. But same thing you do in metaphor also. In metaphor also you do. Particularly in metaphor, rupa, though they are not equivalent. But in rupa also you impose. Like you impose a lotus on face. What is the difference between these two? You are imposing snake on a rope and you are imposing lotus on face. Position is both the cases. What is the difference? In one case you say this is false mithya. When you impose a snake on rope, you call it this is a kind of incorrect knowledge. But in the other, you are doing it deliberately on your own. What are you doing there? This is not out of ignorance, but out of sheer will, you know. But why do we compare at all? Compare or superimpose at all? Because we can see inherent unity of the objects, though apparently they may be different, but still there are some elements which are common. So in a way we are constituting an integral world of experience, integral world of experience, where apparent differences are overlooked or undermined. Right? This is one thing. But when you compare one object with another, for example, there is a very popular name for goddess Meenakshi. Meenakshi. क्या मतलब है मीनाक्षी?
One who has eyes like fish.
Eyes and fish. Right? What is compared? Eye is compared with
The eyes, fish.
fish. What?
The shape.
Eye of fish or shape of
The
fish?
shape of fish.
Shape of fish. Right. Huh? So there could be any number of similarities between the two objects. Now listen here. Poet deliberately selects one out of that, and that is the soul of simile or metaphor. Deliberately. Right. So Singho Manvaka, that is wise, wine. So you don't mean for feet. So it could be many more things, may be common, but it is deliberately selected, and there lies the secret of Upma or other Alankara. There are many Alankaras, many figures of speech based on simile, based on Upma. And this is our classification. Well, so it is not like that. Adhyavasaya, where you said that this person is cow. What do you mean by cow? When you say this person is cow,
Very innocent.
Like,
no, I'm not using cow. Like, I'm simply saying this person
Very
is cow.
innocent. At least in my case.
So there are so many things you have to interpret which similarity you have in mind. Maybe innocent, maybe very kind. Like this.
Stop.
Huh?
Everything is stop. What is stop?
Regular.
First one. Always. And sound is
Should I also stop?
just one thing. It stops.
No, it's recording.
No, sound.
Sound.
Sound
4, I think battery is not.
Now, yeah,
Battery. Battery was gone. ब्रेक दें क्या 5 मिनट? Should we?
Instead of last year.
Hello, hello.
There was one request which I had made to all of you while selecting courses. That the courses apparently are separate, they are not separate. Now you will feel more and more of this. Because they are not separate, you have to know the system of that. And the university has a problem that I have told you. 3 credit courses are wrong, and when our academic council members mention, one academic council member is here, Professor Sarao, you can talk to him about 3 credit courses. He will also come to deliver 3 lectures here. 2 grades are decided, and the third also will be decided. You can ask him what is the flaw in the system. So university has that flaw. That doesn't matter. We need to take care of ourselves.
Hello.
So please look at that aspect.
जरा देखिए तो अभी तो चल रहा है. हेलो.
So that is why you can, if you cannot
चल रहा है.
join the process, at least take from your
ये बंद.
other courses. Because that is very important. So these 3-4 courses are not separate.
Okay. Should we start then?
Yeah, I think it's right.
So it is not also utpreksha, a specific perception. It is not dream, swapna, literary experience. I am contrasting that literary experience is not any one of them. Swapna, not like dream, not like maya. It's merely a construct, or indrajal, magic. Okay, these are the 10 kinds of worldly experiences. How exhaustive is the list you can imagine. If you want to test it, try to add or subtract one, then you will realize how well thought it is. Okay?
सर ये तो
Then
इधर का भी यूज कर सकते हैं ना बट को सर इधर भी आप लिख सकते हैं.
Then there are 5 corresponding types of cognitions. One is called yathartha jnana, as it is. Literary knowledge is not like that. It is mithya jnana, it is not mithya also, constructed or yathartha jnana. Yathartha, mithya. So, as it is not that which is non-contradicted. What is yathartha? That which is non-contradicted knowledge in any time. In all the 3 times, it is non-contradicted. Trikala badhita, non-contradicted in past, present or future. That is yathartha. But it is contradicted. Once the show is over, you are out of it and you see that this is not there. Right? So, yathartha, mithya, shansaya, doubtful. Yeah? Samshaya, right? Samshaya. 3. 4th is anavadharana. Anavadharana, where you see that where we are not in a position to decide the object because of its partial appearance. The object doesn't appear before us in its full form, only a part of that appears. That's why we fail to know what the object is there. And then anadhyavasaya, anadhya va sa 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 yeah. Anadhyavasaya, where the object appears for the first time. You have not seen that object or similar object earlier, it appears for the first time, that's why we fail to know it at that moment. So, literary cognition is different from all these things. But what is important, you cannot deny it, that it is not existing, it does not exist, you cannot say this. This is experience of what we call सहृदय और कैसे ट्रांसलेट करें सहृदय, a person receptive audience, let us say.
So, Sahasa, they know the concept, it cannot be translated.
So it is experienced by the Sahridayas, that's we cannot deny that it doesn't exist at all. Similarly, Brahmanubhuti, experience of the Brahman, Supreme Self, is also not generally experienced by everyone, but yogis experience it, so we cannot deny it. So in the classification, we need to have a space for them. Okay, so we do like this: experience or cognitions,
Lockic, and alockic. This is again important. That's why I am writing separately, because it is generally translated as divine. So under lockic you have all these things which we just discussed, and alockic, since this literary experience of art or experience of the Supreme Self doesn't fit into this category, but it is real, it is not non-existent, so we have to find a space for that in our classification. So it comes here. So Brahmanubhuti, or Rasanubhuti, or Kalanubhuti, whatever you call it. So both experience of the Supreme Self or Atman and experience of rasa, aesthetic experience, both come under alockic because they do not share the features of these lockic categories, right? But that is not to say, though Vishwanath says Brahmananda Sahodara, it means Sahodara means belonging to the same category, right? And that is the category of alockic, different counter correlate, right? Lockic and counter correlate here, alockic. So Brahmanubhuti and Rasanubhuti come here, but that is not to say that both are same. This is a misinterpretation. Why? Because this category is also known as non-explicable. Okay? Rasanubhuti is also non-explicable and Brahmanubhuti is also. So if it is non-explicable, how can you say both are same? Not. The only common thing is that they are different from lockic categories. And that's why we have placed them here. Same, maybe different. Right? So this is the crux of the discussion on the rasa, on the sixth chapter, that finally rasa becomes anirvachaniya. And the opponent asks, you have explained rasa like this, it has become inexplicable. Then Abhinav says, this is the nature, what can I do? This is the nature of this experience, what can I do? This is the way of expounding, method of expounding, that the opponent himself or herself should say what you are going to establish. Okay? That is the greatness of it. Well, now coming to this literary Buddhist theory and literary analysis from in the Buddhist framework, you have three ways to analyze. One is on the model of seven vijnanas, seven or eight vijnanas. Okay. Second, you can analyze it from the point epistemology, Buddhist epistemology, perception inquiry. And the third is on the basis of above theory. Okay. 3 ways you can analyze. 3 ways. So, first is the Ale Vigyan. Take any poem. Okay. Take any poem and mark that poem for its verbs and for its nouns. Okay. Verbs and nouns. And that will give you what kind of poetry it is. Verb, noun, and also adjectives. Adjectives. If the poem is not describing objects empirically, some poets describe their things around. Some poetry is observational in nature. Through eyes, objects are seen and described. Another type of poetry is like this eye. Eye versus eye. Eye versus eye. You have not seen. One is observational poetry, another is reflective. Reflective. So you need to have 2 different ways to approach them. Here you will find even the nouns are reinterpreted. Sometimes verbs are reinterpreted. Sometimes adjectives are also. I give you an example. There is a blessing in the gentle breeze. This is the opening line of verse 1. There is a blessing in the gentle breeze. Can you explain the experience here? What is the physical fact?
That the breeze is
Breeze is flowing, touching the skin. We realize the flowing of the wind through this sense, skin. Okay. So, 5 knowing senses in Vigyan, it comes under that. If there is sound, it pertains to ear. Murmuring sound, for example, hissing sound, this pertains to our ear. And then blessing. What is blessing in the gentle breeze? Simple fact is that breeze is blowing, moving, right? It is reinterpreted. There is lots of things are there. If the breeze is blowing violently with force, you won't feel this. You can't say there is a blessing. Okay? So it is very calm, serene, cool, and touching pleasantly the skin. And it appears that nature is blessing us. Nature is blessing us. So this kind of structure of experience you can pull out from that point if you follow it. For example, dancing daffodils in verses. Where is dancing? Simple fact is that it is with the touch of air, daffodils are moving like this. But that is reinterpreted as dancing. So all this thing takes place at the level of Krishna Manovigyana, where the experience is reinterpreted. Manovigyana simply tells you the facts, impressions, but it is interpreted because this is the level of buddhi, intellect. I think I have compared Panchakosh with these 7 Vigyanas in previous lecture, right? Keep all such things in mind. So this is the level of intellect. So whatever we receive, it is reinterpreted, and it reinterpreted with a reference to the chitta. Chitta is the receptive self, where all the impressions are already stored there. With a reference to those experiences which are stored there in the chitta, verbs are or nouns are reinterpreted. If you read a poem of this category, you will find poet is using mostly abstract nouns. Abstract nouns. And similarly, verbs are also mental, conceptual, like thinking, imagining, like this kind of verbs might be used. So this is the difference. This structure you can explain only in this kind of Panchakosha or sub-7 or 8 Vigyanas which are discussed by the Buddhist scholars. point of view of, should I explain more? That will take time. This is,
You need to explain more. That is the.
take any poem, for example, very short poem. Do you have any?
Maybe a high.
पार्श्वगलिका नम्र चियों में कदर चढ़ती उमंगों से पिछी पैरों में नदी ज्यों दर्द की रेखा यह विशेष मौन नीलों में मैंने आंख भर देखा दिया मन को दिलासा लौट आऊंगा भले ही बरस दिन अंतिम युगों के बाद चमक कर दामिनी बोली अरे यार रहेगा यार सो क्षितिज ने पलक सी खोली चमक कर दामिनी बोली अरे यार रहेगा यार. See this small poem and nothing extraordinary if you go by the literal sense.
Is it possible to take a poem? Do you have any poem which you have already done?
Take
In
it.
your class.
That rainbow poem by Wordsworth or any other poem.
Maybe a Kumar.
No, take what?
Those which can others understand.
Maybe ode to the Prashana.
Any. But that is long poem. No? I need a small poem, 4 or 5 lines.
There will be a small poem.
4 or 5 lines.
Daffodils.
Which all you have read. That will be you can. This is an exercise.
You can just bring daffodils on your screen. So for the daffodils only, take it as a small one. No, there are many, but for example, the sea musical.
Yeah,
The sea musical is about 5 minutes. The sea musical is very good in this eye.
But the poetry are very long.
Not all. In fact, there is one article also where the sea musical's poems are explained in, I think, Panchkosha case. It's available on Rajnish. It's available on some. हो सकता है पंचकोश लेकिन वो that you can check also. Professor Kumar is also explained in Shankaracharya's Panchkosha.
पंचकोश में उन्होंने भी लिख दिया था गोपाल आदमी है.
नहीं यहाँ बिल्कुल है ही नहीं, यहाँ तो सिर्फ पोएम्स का एनालिसिस है पंचकोश में.
Can you see? This one.
हाँ, I want to go here.
Your left side now.
ठीक है?
Completely discuss.
So
On your mobile you can see the poem.
Daffodils, poem by Wordsworth. Very common. I wondered, note down these nouns or verbs or adjectives, adverbs. This is a poem associated with this category. I, self-reflection. So I wandered lonely as a cloud. So the experience is this I. What kind of I is this? Is the poet writing, observing and writing at the same time? No. Long back he has seen such a thing. And it is stored in his receptive self. And as it is said here in the last scene, for oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure feels and dances with the blackness. Long back he has seen. It is not that instant experience. It is so lots of reflection. Whatever we have stored in the solitude. That's why in the beginning I told you that most of the time we are in communion with our own self. Communion with our own self. And this is how it goes on. So This verb is also a reinterpreted verb, wandered. What is there? Like a cloud, as cloud has no destination. The self is also wandering here in the poetry also. And in any case, if you are using metaphor, simile, etc., it is already a reinterpreted state, Vishnu-Vijnana, that floats upon high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, again metaphorical, crowd is metaphorical, a host of golden daffodils beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the trees, fluttering and dancing, again reinterpreted, dancing daffodils, continuous as the stars that shine, again reinterpretation, continuous. Though there are individual daffodils, but they appear continuous. It's just a patch of golden daffodils. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, all interpreted. And since the poet's self is of the bliss, blissful experiences are already stored. That's why he's interpreting all such things in that framework. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of the way. 10,000 saw at a glance. Again, 10,000 is not a number. It means many. Innumerable. 10,000 saw at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. So all reinterpreted present blissful images you are getting. The waves beside them danced. The waves are also dancing, but they dance means what? Rhythmic. It has to be rhythmic. They're full, rhythmic and blissful. These are the associated meanings. But they outdid the sparkling waves. A poet could not but be weighed in such a jocund company. Poetry also. There's a kind of affinity between these daffodils and the poet. In such a jocund company, I gazed and gazed. Again, so repetition means continuously gazing. Gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me proud. So what happens? Sometimes Wordsworth particularly, you will see that there is another poem by expostulation and response or something like that, where his friend is saying that why William you are sitting on the grey old stone, and why you are spending your day like this. And then the poet says, our eyes cannot choose but see. We are referring to this perception without any mental processing. Okay? Without any mental processing. So it is possible. It is possible. You are not constructing images like the way he is doing here. It depends on the level your being is. So then he says, Prof, when on my couch I lie, vacant or pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye. Inward eye. Not this physical eye. This one. Okay? Inward eye. Which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills. It is a very, very good affinity, natural affinity with the images in nature which he has experienced. And once he had observed them at a point, he might have observed them, but that is not important. Observation is not important. Important is what? The impressions which he has received. And it is stored there depending on the intensity of the experiences. They are stored in our self. And they keep reflecting and constitute our self. This is how this kind of analysis of experience of structure one can in any poem. Then you have a second thing is that from on the basis of, you see, epistemology, you can classify accordingly ontology and epistemology, perception and inference, and these are the two epistemological means. And ontologically, you have perception, you have pragmatics as transcendental and phenomenal. So that you can also do. Here. See, I have studied like this. First marking the poem in bold letter and italics like that. This will be a rigorous linguistic exercise. If you know this category only, then one can do this. No? How they are reinterpreted. First of all, we need to identify those grammatical categories which are there in the language, and then to see how they are reinterpreted. Some are just common, not simple, some are reinterpreted. So where you find reinterpretation of the experience, there you have just go for explaining the content over there. Right. So you will see that you will find, if you analyze, this is a long poem I have analyzed internally, but there you will find that this level, reinterpreted level, is dominant in this poem. And the nouns which are abstract, that are more than the concrete nouns. So the poem naturally takes you within. It asks you to experience it, only then one can explain its structure. In the same way, you see, from the point of view of Apo theory, the same process which we have just seen, that each word exclude its counter correlate, and we are doing this at the conceptual level. So the poem I, for example, I wandered lonely as a cloud. So first of all, it excludes all its counter correlates, and it goes on. See, what we are doing in Apo theory or sport theory, we are not talking about the end product, that somebody utters a word and you get the meaning. That is fine. But what is the process involved? You press a button and some letter appears, but in between lots of things have happened that till we reach the its print on the screen, appearance on the screen. So that process is important here. So the Buddhists are saying simply that lots of mental processing goes on, and we exclude its counter correlates, and finally the meaning of I is positive, meaning of cow is positive, meaning of wandering verb is though reinterpreted, but we know also what is different from non-wandering. In this way, each and every word is established, its meaning is established, and this is how they form a kind of probability unit, and finally we arrive at the meaning of the poem that is distinct from the meaning of other poems. That will be its specific meaning. So it's a rigorous, detailed analysis of language. We did not know the characteristics of romantic poetry also. Everything will come out of it. This analysis tells you what kind of poetry it is. And then you name this romantic poetry or Victorian poetry or whatsoever. But the poem itself is suggestive of its nature. Right? So, without knowing about Wordsworth, that he was a romantic poet, and from there are several sources of his poetry and also things. These are of course important, but finally you are going to analyze the poem. And you need a tool and technique like this that helps you to analyze its language, analyze its metaphors, analyze its symbols, only then, and how it is translated as a particular experience. Because ultimate goal is to give you the structure of experience which is involved. In this way, we can read the poem. Right? So I think, sir.
Question of
Go through, if you want some more, go through the pages, I think chapter 4.
you have this book.
Yeah. Yes, any observation? This is the last class. I'm thankful to all of you, and particularly Shushanji, and grateful to all these colleagues for inviting me and being there for, for encouragement. Thank you very much. Any observation? If you want to say something more? Yes.
Sir, I have a question. Like, sir, you mentioned the term Pratibimba, like you say it is counter image. But I have read somewhere it is also a reflection.
Reflection is defined, and counter image means it opposite to the image. Okay? You look in this side and it appears this.
So is it the same? Is it reflection or counter image?
Counter image is a kind of literal translation. It captures the words also inside there. Prati means counter, opposite, and Bimba, image.
Now we analyzed words for poetry in that we saw that where
Any poem you can analyze.
no, any poem.
Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient is right upon analyze and see.
Yes,
This line is good. Last line of the
yeah, yes, yes.
like a patient and eyes on this they have studied that.
So try to analyze this in this framework. You'll have 300 pages. You analyze it fully. I gave up after 60 pages. It's too much. Yes.
So in that case, it leads a kind of, or it makes something uneven from that Alaya Vijnana, or impose something. But that is with regards to the poet and the poetry. But there is also the reader which is interpreting it. So the Krishna Manovijnana of the author, which is let's say recording the poem, is not similar to the Krishna Manovijnana of the reader. Then, so how does it kind of work?
No, if you are going to interpret the reinterpreted images or symbols or descriptions, naturally you have to, first of all, you have to identify that this is reinterpreted. If you do not identify it, it is just plain to be very straightforward. So it is required from the receptive reader also, that he or she should identify that here is the level of Krishna Manovijnana, here is the level of Manovijnana, or just simple descriptions like looking at something, walking. Such expressions are also there. So they are just a physical gloss at the level of sensory perceptions, like this karmendriya organs of action. So in poems you find all such sorts of things. Simple description also somewhere, and sometimes reinterpreted. Those simple expressions are also reinterpreted. So this is why, that's why we need a receptive reader, receptive, knowledgeable also. Rajshekar will tell you, Shastra Purvakam Kavya Abhinvishe. First read the Shastra, then enter in the domain of poetry. You will see what is happening there. Yes? Sorry for making you tired.
But now it's not Sharida.
No, sir,
Oh, you have?
I have lots of questions, but
No, continue. Continue the
because
dialogue.
I think even I have not understood everything, so those questions would not be appropriate. But so how does Krishna Manovijnana then meet Klishta Manasa then leads to Rasa, because Rasa is something which is out of there. So it's not in the language. It's little bit away from the language. It's in the experience where the language ends. It's in the para, if I could say that. So how? No, it's not in the para. Okay, let's say the whatever non-explicable. It's non-explicable because it's not limited to the language. So how does it work? Because Klishta Manasa cannot have Rasa. That will be
No,
like,
taste will not have the rasa.
obviously.
But ultimately, the experience or the impressions which we are getting, that is transformed into rasa. Rasa is a matter of chitta.
Yeah.
Here,
So it's in the Alaya Vijnana.
unable. Yes.
So Rasa is in the Alaya
Certainly,
Vijnana.
certainly. This is the processing. You arrive at certain conclusion, you reinterpret it, and then you finally the ultimate impression is there. It filters through all these vijnanas and gets resulted there in the alaya.
So we are dissolving the Klishta Manasa to reach Alaya Vijnana. But the Klishta Manasa which is being dissolved is not poets or the poems.
In the last stanza of the poems, what you are saying, that in vacant or intensive,
Yeah.
it means all these impressions are stored there, and since these are the there is a series of such pleasant, blissful moments. Similarly, the impressions are also created, and they are there. So the poet is in the blissful self, and that is the rasa. And this is equally required from the reader also. Equally required. Otherwise, you won't take it.
So then the Rasa that is experienced by the poet and by the poem will be differing, because then any experience of bliss would
There
be
is no
Rasa.
parameter to measure it.
Yes.
There is no parameter. What amount of rasa is poet having or reader. But that's common. Let us say maybe reader might be having more than that.
But it's not different.
Yeah.
Not
It's a difference of degree. It might be degree,
Okay, yes.
but not different.
quantity will differ,
My
not
question is
quality.
what become instrumental in the Rasanubhuti, whether it's poetry or the reader's interpretation. Because all these have Klishta Manasa. So which leads to, what is dissolved to lead to Rasa out of these three?
No. All these 7 vijnanas they are the channels only, okay, through which this is filtered and finally goes to Chitta, Alaya. That is important. That is important. These are the names of the stages,
Yeah.
different phases, how this experience is being constituted, structured, and whatever is received at the end, that is the rasa. Okay? Other things are, once you reach there, other things are just irrelevant now. You are in a position to speak. They are important in the process. Okay? In the process. Once you understand the meaning of a sentence, you will remember the words also. It's complete cognitive unit. You understand something out of it. Words are sounds, these are no longer there. They get dissolved. Their purpose is done.
And very rightly, Professor Mishra, eliminated these worldly experiences. So these worldly experiences do not verify. You transcend them. You are in a different state, though it's not divine, but even this is not lawful also. So that you transcend this whole knowledge world. So you enter into a different world where then you start realizing that state that
Literature must transcend, or art must transcend this experience.
So it's a dissolving of the self of the reader also.
Yes, Sadharanikaran we call it.
Yes, but where I was coming from was because there is Swabhav Shunyata in Vijnanvada. So what really leads to
Again, we are talking about the conceptual.
only
But that is important. When how do you, if you are already filled up, you won't be able to receive this. So you have to empty yourself. To get all such things. This is the part of the reader, emptying out first. Only then we will be able to grasp it. Okay. So, are we ready? beautiful description in one of the Buddhist texts. I think you should read Ananda Kumaraswamy, The Dance of Shiva.
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
Where he gives you the process from the Buddhist text, how a sculptor makes an image. Suppose any desired deity, Vishnu or so. Has anyone seen Buddha or Vishnu? Buddha was here on this earth.
Yeah.
Vishnu, Shiva, and all.
Yeah.
But we do make images.
Yeah.
Who is the? I'm talking about that the first artist who made it. How did he do it? This is it. Okay. So the process. All others are imitators. Rest of imitators. You see, there is a process involved. So the artist first purifies himself, takes bath and all, and then worship his or her desired deity, offering him flower and all such things, and then he just goes into loneliness, lonely place. There he meditates, and he meditates and taking out all his ego and all such things, all impressions. He's getting rid of everything. That process, emptying himself. And finally, the deity takes the form, and that's why the artist is known as yogi, mantri, sadhak in this stage. Once he sees that, visualizes that image, his task as a yogi or artist is complete. And now this is a skill that matters. How to translate that into physical object of the medium in which he uses. So emptying out, dissolving your own self. If you keep retaining your own self, you won't understand Ramayana or Mahabharata. You will be trying to find out those episodes as our leftist friends do. They have already certain images in their minds, and they will try to see or superimpose that on the text. Meaning is cultivated within the text, not imposing from outside the text. Okay? Yes.
Sir, this semester we were studying Yoga Sutra in our Hindu studies, and there we studied about the 5 vrittis, chitta vrittis. And it was very interesting to find that those are very much similar to these 5 worldly experiences. They are the pramana, viparya, vikalpa, nigra and smritya. So like if you compare them, like equate them, and they are almost
I don't know. Yeah, one can make a comparative study.
yes, I just wanted to express that.
But yoga is called yoga chitta vritti in yoga. If chitta vritti is strong, then such things may be difficult to watch.
No, it's like it is for to attain the salvation, and it is to realize something more.
But and that's why I was just referring to Ananda Kumaraswamy. He talks about art yoga. Art yoga. Art is also a form of yoga, kala yoga. So that has to be worked upon. So take very rightly you pointing out. Take the different traditions of yoga. Patanjali yoga, Ashtangik yoga. There are other yoga traditions also, like Bhakti yoga, Sharan yoga, which is called Shaiva yoga, that is also Sharan yoga. Sharan means 6 limbs, having 6 limbs. And Vishnu, Vaishnava yoga, there Vishnu as the chief teacher. So all these traditions put together, try to make a kind of comparative study of them. And then they may be developed as a very beautiful model for analysis of art experience. Okay.
Even in modern day theory, when we define poet or a writer, so it's a condition that he should. Sir. I mean, this is statement.
I think statement is the most important linguistic entity.
Already, just some of you.
Then also,
if you remember when I was talking in the course of creative writing, so there are the conditions for a creative writer also. What the conditions he has, suppose I gave you example from the yoga also when we are talking about the yama niyam. So it's not only external purity, internal purity is also, referring to the word, which is very indispensable. And even in modern day things, when we talk about the writer, critic, or poet, so the essential condition is we have to transcend prejudices, the biases, and that's not a very easy task. So when you transcend them, of course, when you mitigate, when you crumble down the difference in perception, that's a very important. These are certain conditions in which if you read them, you will find them very close to the perception given in yoga, Nirodha, Vritti. So you have to control those vrittis, and it's not in a day or so. So there are two ways again. Either you are gifted one, or if not gifted, though then there is a process sometimes it takes through your faculty also. When Shri Arjuna was he was interviewed about when he was writing Savitri. So he was interviewed by the correspondent and he asked how did you write it. So he said, no, it was just grace of God. It's a direct transmission from God. So he asked a point of question then, why did you revise it by the direct transmission from the God? Why did you revise it again and again? So then he said the law was with the framework, with the body, with the system. System was not appropriate. What is the system? The system of the poet. So system of the poet has to be revised, has to transcend all the the worldly affairs, and he has to transcend the biases, and he has to then dissolve himself in order to describe what is the different, or what is the relationship between an individual and the cosmos. So basically this is whole story about the writer's personality just to coming closer to the higher self. So and this is how the difference is got. The difference is complete gone. So this is the process in modern, in Plato also talks about. When Plato talks about this, when there is a shudder, perspiration, emotion and all. So then process is coming down, and when immediately at one place, then he realizes an individual as a cosmos. So in what happens in ritual is, it's not individual, rather it's the whole cosmos. Why do we undergo this experience of rasa and all? Because there we realize an individual, the whole cosmos. We are not laughing, we are not enjoying, we are not enjoying that experience, we are not weeping for an individual. When Desdemona is being murdered, it's not Desdemona as an individual, the whole cosmos, the whole universe, the whole human race is being murdered. So this is how an individual becomes the whole universe. So I think that is definitely important there. So all differences are crumbled down. The moment all differences are crumbled down, then we purify our soul, then dissolving takes place, and it's out. And this is what very appropriately Professor Mishra said. And then that bhav, that image, that bimb, then comes to your mind, which you put it on word or the canvas. Okay.
Sir, when you were mentioning from gentle, you were saying cave elements, right? That is cave elements.
Yes, what Shaila now?
First of all, you. First you. Sir, and photographs. First you announce that.
Oh,
Take.
rich meaning and epistemology in Baudd darshan has deepened our understanding of these traditions. We are also grateful for your contributions to the fields of shared philosophy and literary theory and for generously sharing your vast knowledge with us. Your scholarly work, including your exploration of Abhinav Brooks' poetics and your book Buddhist Theory of Meaning and Literary Analysis, continues to inspire and shape the academic discourse in these areas. On the behalf of the faculty, students, and everyone who has fortunate enough to be part of this enriching experience, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to you for your time, effort, and dedication in preparing and delivering these thought-provoking lectures. We also thank our Dean, Dr. Kumar Mishra, for making the lectures possible, and to each one of you who attended and participated in this intellectually stimulating series of lectures. Once again, Professor Mishra, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. We are deeply grateful, and we hope that this series of lectures marks the beginning of many more such experiences. Thank you all, and I wish everyone a transformative and fruitful journey. Thank you. Now from Nalanda University, sir, we would like to give you a token of gratitude.
And with this we come to an end. We thank the administration, our technical staff, and all those who made it possible, to our Vice Chancellor who readily agreed to this, to all the proposals, to this proposal that we had sent. And we got the approvals, and of course, Professor Rajnish has been profusely thanked by the students. So there is nothing that I can say, but our administration is very, very helpful, and our technical staff. So we thank all those who made it possible. We are grateful to the faculty members who attended and enriched our experience, and those who come from different schools. And perhaps this dialogue between the schools should continue so that we reach higher experiences, much more what we were discussing, and we call also the Eureka experiences and the AHA experiences that we require in the future.